Hi everyone. Today I'm going to look at another name of God in the Bible, El Roi, the God who sees. El Roi only appears once, but it tells us something about the character of God and just how much he cares for us and watches over us. I'm going to read from Genesis 16 from the NIV version. And to fill you in the background, Abraham and Sarai have been told by God that they will have a son, and that Abraham will be the father of nations with many descendants. And they've been waiting for this promise to be fulfilled for a while. Now, Sarai, Abraham's wife, had borne him no children, but she had an Egyptian maidservant named Hagar. So she said to Abraham, "The Lord has kept me from having children. Go, sleep with my maidservant. Perhaps I can build a family through her." Abraham agreed to what Sarai said. So after Abraham had been living in Canaan 10 years, Sarai his wife took her Egyptian maidservant Hagar and gave her to her husband to be his wife. He slept with Hagar and she conceived. When she knew she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress. Then Sarai said to Abraham, "You are responsible for the wrong I am suffering. I put my servant in your arms, and now that she knows she is pregnant, she despises me. May the Lord judge between you and me." "Your servant is in your hands," Abraham said. "Do with her whatever you think best." Then Sarai ill-treated Hagar, and so she fled from her. The angel of the Lord found Hagar near a spring in the desert. It was the spring that's beside the road to Shur. And he said, "Hagar, servant of Sarai, where have you come from, and where are you going?" "I'm running away from my mistress Sarai," she answered. Then the angel of the Lord told her, "Go back to your mistress and submit to her." The angel added, "I will increase your descendants so much that they will be too numerous to count." And the angel of the Lord also said to her, "You are now with child, and you will have a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard of your misery. He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. And he will live in hostility towards all his brothers." She gave this name to the Lord who spoke to her, "You are the God who sees me, El Roi." For she said, "I have now seen the one who sees me." And that is why the well is called Beer Lahai Roi. It's still there, between Kadesh and Bered. So Hagar bore Abraham a son, and Abraham gave the name Ishmael to the son she had borne. Abraham was 86 years old when Hagar bore him Ishmael. So Sarai and Abraham have tried to take matters into their own hands regarding their promise of a son. And it doesn't end well. In fact, it's a real mess, and something that would be right at home in a modern-day soap opera. There's jealousy and bitterness between Hagar and Sarai, and also anger between husband and wife. Hagar can't take any more, and she runs away. Hagar's desperate. She's alone, she's abandoned, she's pregnant. She's a slave, she's someone else's property with no rights of her own. She's in a foreign land, and the fact that she's going to Shur suggests that she's trying to get home to Egypt, which is a tremendously long distance across the desert of the Sinai Peninsula. But then an angel of the Lord appears to her, and just like Abraham, God makes a promise to her. "Return to Sarai and submit to her authority, and God will give you, Hagar, many descendants." And the last bit, I guess, makes sense, because after all, her son Ishmael is also a son of Abraham. But she needs to return home, and she needs to submit. In the promise that God made to Abraham, he was asked to submit to God. Hagar is asked to submit to Sarai, the person whom she probably hates more than anyone else. To say this will not be easy for her is an understatement. I mean, you could say it's her own fault for being arrogant to Sarai in the first place, but Hagar knows that as a slave she will be punished for running away, and punished harshly, and actually the fact that she's carrying Abraham's child will probably save her life. Submitting to her mistress Sarai does not mean that Sarai is a better person. Actually, it echoes what Peter writes in 1 Peter verse 18, chapter 2. "Slaves, submit to your masters with all respect, not only those who are good and considerate, but also those who are harsh." If Hagar suffers, then as verse 19 continues, she will be commended for the pain that she endures. And it looks like Hagar is going to suffer. Her son will be a wild donkey of a man and will have enemies with everyone. I have 2 sons, and I think if anyone had told me this about them before I had had them, I would probably have thought about giving them up for adoption. You do wonder about the anxiety and the heartache that Ishmael must have caused Hagar as he grew up. But Hagar accepts all of this and does what God requires of her, even though she knows it'll be difficult. And why is this? Well, because possibly for the first time in her life she felt seen and she felt heard. In fact, the name Ishmael means God hears. She has been a slave in a house where she almost had no name. If you look at the argument that Abram and Sarai have about her in verses 5 to 6, both of them just call her your servant or my servant. It seems that she's not even worthy of a name. And she's so pleased at the angel's visit that she has the audacity to actually name God, the only person who does this in the whole Bible. Verse 13, you are the God who sees me. You are El Roi. And God sees each one of us today. He is El Roi. Although that specific name is not mentioned in the Bible again, probably because it was personally given, the fact that God is one who sees us comes up again and again. In Psalm 139, verses 1 to 3, Lord, you have searched me and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from far off. You discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all my ways. Only a God who sees every detail of our lives can do this. In Matthew 10, verse 30, Jesus says that even the very hairs on our heads are numbered. This is a God who sees us, who hears us, and who watches over us. And unlike me, in one of the many moments where I've lost a child on the beach or in Sainsbury's, and unlike the disciples when Jesus was praying in the garden at Gethsemane, God doesn't take his eye off the ball. It doesn't matter who we are, whether we are the father of nations like Abraham or the lowliest servant girl like Hagar. Nobody is overlooked. We can say, I am noticed, I'm seen, and I matter. He delights to see us and spend time with us, and he cares for us. And in fact, as it says in John 3, verse 16, he loves and cares for us so much that he sent his son to die for us. Because we are noticed and seen and he watches over us, I think 2 things are true. Firstly, we can rest in his presence. We can spend time with our eyes fixed on him, knowing that's what he wants us to do, as he longs for us to seek him. And then secondly, as we do that, just like Hagar, we can find the strength that we need to keep going when things are tough. When, like Hagar, we face an uncertain future, not knowing what will be round the corner. Amen.